Okay, so the first thing I do is part down the center, and I want to section everything in zone 1 off. So everything above the round of the head, I'm going to go ahead and section off. And I do this, I kind of operate on one side when I'm cutting one side and then the other. So I'm not going back and forth, and I worry about everything underneath before moving to the top. Sophie. She wants to be involved. Okay. Then we section off everything. Let me make this a little bit cleaner. Separate half in the back. Don't need to clip these, I just kind of want to get in my head that we're working one head half the time. And then once I get that done, we want to section off everything behind the ear, and we will go ahead and clip this off right here. So do the same thing on this side. Oh, get another clip. Okay, so now that we have all the sections, we have the top sectioned off and the front two sides. I always like to start in the front because the most important thing of any bob and graduated bob is usually the front length. That's the length that they care about the most. They want to know it comes to here. So that's why I don't like to start graduation in the back. So I will look at the head and determine whatever length I want in the front, and then how much graduation I want. And then that's when I will cut this angle on the side with as loose of tension as I could possibly want. So, Sydney, how much graduation do you want? A little? A lot? What do you want to see?
I want a little because I don't like large graduations.
I mean, it's not very common, but this technique will work for both. Obviously, you saw the other doll head. So let's not go for a full 45. Let's do something in between. Maybe just like that. What do you think?
Perfect.
So what I'm looking at, I actually step back from the head, and I'm like, okay, if she wants her length there, if we want that kind of an angle, you have to look and see where the nape is too, right? So if you did a graduated here, that's going to cut, coming good and closer, and you can really see with a large comb, if I put that in through there, that's gonna cut off her nape. So you know your graduation has to be lower than the nape, right? Because we don't wanna shave into the nape. So I look at my comb and I see, okay, if the length is here, where do I want this to be, right? So making sure I'm not cutting into the nape, we're gonna just do a little bit of graduation. Let's do it right there. Like that angle?
Love it.
Okay. So what I will do, because I always like to cut, I like to create a point A and a point B so that I'm cutting two. So we start this and I wanna see, this is gonna be my connection piece in the back, right? I'm just gonna grab a little piece of hair from my connection piece. I'm gonna come back with my comb and I'm gonna see where that connection piece is. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that right there. Because when I go back through here in a minute, that's gonna be my guide, cutting from point A to point B. Cool?
Cool.
Once I have that, I come around to the front because we need to get these first two sides perfectly symmetric before moving on. If we don't get the first two sides symmetric, then the whole haircut takes a lot longer and it doesn't flow. So I'm gonna come back to the front. I'll stand in front of my client and I'll actually put my comb here, square across so that I can get my guide for the front. And then I'll cut just a little piece on this side so that they're matching. And then I will spin her around. And then I will look for that same guide in the back because I can still see that little hair from the back. And I'll do the same angle. I'll put my long comb so I can see, okay, that's the front guide, that's the back. And I'll cut it at that angle. Okay? And then we want to check and make sure. I checked probably 1,000,000 times, making sure this front length is even. I'll also turn her around and feel the back since we sectioned in the same place. And one side's always a little bit longer. This side seems a little bit longer to me, so I'm gonna go back through and cut just a little bit more, and you can even see it's that last little piece that'll make a difference. Okay, so now we have that. We have our front two sides as our guide. We have the angle in. Now I'm gonna show you how to work through the back. And again, like we were doing before with this guy, I'm going to be pulling all the sections back to this line, right? So I'm gonna be using this front and this, and I'm gonna make a connection at a diagonal this way, and I'm gonna connect this to that as I'm pulling off the head at 45 degrees. Let me get a different comb. So I will take a section from there, diagonal forward. And then if I'm pulling everything 45 degrees off the head, just like I would if I were holding her head back, that's the angle I'm gonna be doing. So I can pull this off and I can see that's my guide. And I'm just gonna keep combing until I connect with my side guide. You can see I'm not elevating too high or too low. I'm coming right off the head. Okay? So then you can see this graduation is laying on top of everything underneath. So now that we have a strong line, I'm gonna take a diagonal forward, leaving some of my guide, and we're just gonna continue. I'm gonna tilt her head, and you'll just pick up a little bit of hair each time, over direct back, 45 degrees off the head. And I'm gonna continue traveling. What happened?
I just accidentally went the wrong way. It's fine.
Any questions so far, Sydney? Does this all make sense?
I think so.
So what's cool about working down the head like this is because usually we put sections of hair on top and you have to look underneath, but your guide's on top, so it's very easy to see. So I'm gonna keep over-directing back. I see my guide on top, so I'm just cutting hair underneath, pulling 45 degrees off. And my comb just picks up a little bit of hair at a time. I'm not going in and picking up all the hair. I'm just using the small tooth part of my comb to elevate a little bit and gets that. And just keep taking a little bit off until I work all the way through the nape. Make sure this is a little bit cleaner. Center back. Last little bit. I will go ahead and pick up that hair from underneath. Okay, so this side is done. And when you comb this down now, comb back and forth, and then comb down, you can see the graduation's in there, and you're gonna have a ducktail. That is normal. That's supposed to be there. We will clean that up after the blow dry. So don't think you should go in and change any of that right now. If you do it wet, you will regret it. So now I'll go through and do this side. And what's great, I already have my guide from the other, so I'm gonna take a diagonal forward. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna connect these two, connecting my front points with the back point. I like to start in the back. There we go. Find my guide from the side. And connect. I I will check balance just on that top layer just to see if my links are the same, and they are.
Good job.
Thanks. And I will say, even though this is really easy for me to do at this point, this haircut, because I've done it a few times, just like anything new, like if you're learning a new technique like balayage or anything, even if it's simple, straightforward, I would recommend trying it on a doll head just to get a feel for it before you try it on a client.
I think it should be perfect the first time around.
Was your first balayage perfect?
No, it was god awful.
So now we're working down below. I'm going to section up some of the top so I can see better. And it's really important, again, to not comb straight back or do straight down. Really come 45 degrees off the head. Too much. Okay. Now this side is done. What do you think we're going to be doing to the top, Sydney?
Connecting the dots.
Basically, now we're going to just do the same exact thing. We're going to take diagonal forward sections and we're just going to continue to over direct back again. I can't stress this enough. This is just like the doll head. It's all brought back to that same plane so that when it sweeps forward, it has that nice graduation that falls to one length in the front. So I'm still just going to be pulling it straight back, imagining I'm doing a one length. There's a imaginary one length in my head that I'm just doing at a different angle. I'm doing it at a 45-degree angle. Okay. And I'll still work one side at a time. So we'll just take tiny little sections. Since now our guide is going to be underneath, I'll take smaller sections so it'll be easier to see.
You need a new comb.
Huh?
You need a new comb.
I love my comb. Don't talk about my comb. So as we elevate, you know, you get above the round of the head. If you want to elevate a little bit higher than taking it all the way down at 45, because a lot of the times what happens with that hair on a graduated bob, you know, like it's nice and smooth and then there's just a really heavy weight line. So when you're above the round of the head, feel free to elevate just a little bit more. It'll give you a softer overhang. But I'm still, as I work around the side of the head, you can see this way, even though I elevated this section up here, this is still coming down at 45. I feel like some people would want to pull it straight back like this, but we're still coming down 45 degrees. Just pulling it all back. Here, come on this side. I think it'll be easier for you to see. Pulling, especially the lower you get on the head, you don't want to pull this back here. You want to pull it down there. Thoughts so far?
Doing great.
Okay. Last section. Pulling going down here. Again, because this is at that 45-degree angle. And that side's done. And you can see your graduation is in there. Like I said, you have a tail. Don't worry about that. Diagonal forward. Come around to that side now. I think that'll be easier. And elevating just a little bit higher right in the crown, so hopefully she's not too heavy. And then immediately start dropping down. Last section. Okay, so now that this is all wet cut, we're gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna blow dry, and I promise I won't do any touching up of any kind, so you don't miss any of the hair cutting, so you can see how you finish this out.